One of my favorite things about Final Fantasy XIV is the class and job system. In most MMOs, each character can play a single class. If you want to play multiple roles for your party, you have to level up, go through the main story quests, and get new gear on multiple characters. With 14's job system, you can level every job on a single character. Over the next few videos, we'll break down each role, how the job system works, and how to decide what job is right for you. We'll start with a brief overview of how the job system actually works. When you initially create your character, you'll choose from one of 9 classes. Upon reaching level 30 on a class, you'll need to complete 2 quests. One is a one-time completion quest titled Self-Management. Don't worry about missing it, self-management's part of the main scenario. In addition, you'll need to complete a job-specific quest that'll reward you with an item called a Soul Crystal. This upgrades your class into a job. For example, when you complete the level 30 Gladiator quest titled Paladin's Pledge, you'll get a Soul Crystal that contains a Soul of the Paladin. Equip this crystal in the Soul Crystal slot in the equipment window to upgrade from Gladiator to Paladin. This is necessary for your job to keep up with the game. During initial character creation, you've got a few options for each of the 4 roles: Tank, Healer, Physical DPS, and Caster DPS. In this video, we're going to focus on tanks. We'll cover the other roles in separate videos to keep these from getting too long. If you want a tank, you can start the game as either a Gladiator or a Marauder. At level 30, Gladiator becomes Paladin and Marauder becomes Warrior. Later on, you'll have the opportunity to become a Dark Knight or a Gunbreaker. Paladin is a supportive tank job that wields a sword and shield with the purpose of defending others. As in many other games, Paladins can channel holy magic to defend and heal their allies or to defeat their enemies. With a simple 2-part melee rotation and at higher levels of magic rotation to go along with it, Paladins make for great off-tanks, or someone who provides support for the main tank. Some examples of Paladin actions are Cover, which redirects all damage an allied target takes within range to yourself; Clemency, which heals an ally and yourself; Intervention, which grants an amount of damage reduction to an ally based on your own buffs; and Passage of Arms, which reduces the damage taken by all allies standing behind you, and is one of the best looking abilities in the game. Warrior is the local man who is literally too angry to die. Wielding a great axe and the power of anger, warriors channel their inner beasts to shrug off damage and unleash an unmatched savagery on those that would stand against them. Focused on self-healing and damage reduction, warriors bring a little bit less to the table in terms of supporting another tank than the Paladin does, but makes up for it in damage and survivability. Warrior actions are abilities like Thrill of Battle, which increases your max HP and heals you; Shake It Off, which shields yourself and nearby party members; Inner Release, which lets you use certain actions with no cost and nullifies most forms of crowd control; and Nascent Flash, which absorbs damage you deal as HP for yourself and a target party member. After reaching Ishgard at the start of the Heavensward expansion, you can complete a short quest line to unlock the Dark Knight job. Dark Knights wield a great sword and channel the power of darkness to empower their own abilities and protect others. Similar to the Warrior, Dark Knights perform a lot of self-healing and also have several actions focused on protecting their allies and enhancing their own damage-dealing capabilities. These actions are things like Flood of Darkness, which deals damage and increases your own damage dealt; Abyssal Drain, which deals damage in an area and restores health for each enemy hit; the Blackest Night, which creates a fairly hefty shield on a target and is one of the strongest tank actions in the game; and Living Shadow, which summons a shadow clone of yourself to fight alongside you. The final tank currently available in Final Fantasy XIV is the Gunbreaker. To unlock the Gunbreaker job, you need to have purchased the Shadowbringers expansion and be at least level 60 on one other combat job. Fighting with a gunblade, magic bullets, and a dream, the Gunbreaker is a fast-paced, well-rounded tank that does high DPS with solid mitigation and support capabilities. Note that the Gunbreaker does have a longer, somewhat more intense rotation than the other tank jobs, so you may need to put in a little bit of practice if that's not something you're used to. Some of their actions are Camouflage, which increases your parry rate and reduces damage taken; Aurora, which grants healing over time to yourself or an allied target; Heart of Light, which reduces magic damage taken by yourself and nearby party members; and Continuation, which lets you extend your combo that's executed through spending cartridges, or magic bullets. As a tank, your job is to draw the attention of the enemies and soak damage while your team mows them down. If you're new to tanking, it's pretty common to be a bit nervous, especially before you know the dungeons and fights. Don't worry though, for the most part, tanking in Final Fantasy XIV is pretty simple. For starters, all tanks have an ability known as a tank stance. Tank stance is a persistent ability that increases your enmity generation pretty significantly. For the Paladin, this is Iron Will. For the Warrior, it's Defiance. Dark Knight is Grit, and Gunbreaker is Royal Guard. If you're playing a tank in a duty, you pretty much always want this to be turned on. As long as it's on, you really don't have to worry about losing enemy aggro as long as you're playing correctly. In dungeons, all you need to do is turn on tank stance and run toward the enemies. Make sure to grab aggro with area of effect abilities like Overwhelm or Total Eclipse and go to town. Keep using your AoE abilities on groups of 3 or more enemies, and when single targeting, make sure you're not losing aggro on anything. To tell, there are 2 places you can look. The party list shows who currently has aggro on the targeted enemy, and then the order of enmity generated by other players. The player who currently has aggro will have a capital A by their job icon with a red bar underneath. Other players will have a number by their job icon that shows where they're currently at on the enmity list. If you die or lose aggro, the person with the number 2 will pick it up. The other example is the enemy list. Every enemy you're currently in combat with appears here. If the icon next to the enemy name is a large red square, congratulations, you've got enmity on that enemy. As you start to lose aggro, these icons will change from a large red square to various shapes and shades of orange and yellow before eventually turning green, indicating no enmity at all. On bosses, the rule of thumb is to keep the boss facing away from the rest of the party. That way, if it has any sort of AoE tank buster or other targeted cone or line attacks, you don't hit the entire party with it. This will occasionally be different depending on the fight, but that's something you have to learn as you go. In addition to what we've already talked about, make sure that you're using your defensive cooldowns correctly. Each tank has a few mitigation abilities, like Rampart or Camouflage. These are some of the most important abilities in a tank's kit because they reduce the damage you take and keep you alive. The key to using these actions correctly is to space them out. Don't overlap 2 mitigation abilities to reduce more damage. You have to be sure to stay alive until the mobs or the boss is dead, so cycle through them. This gives more space for your DPS to do their jobs and for the healer to keep you on your feet. There are also abilities like the Paladin's Sheltron or the Dark Knight's The Blackest Night to use between your bigger cooldowns or for tank busters. While there's a bit more nuance to tanking than what we've talked about here, a lot of it is simply learned through experience. Things like how to tank swap during a specific fight or how much you can pull at a time depends on your personal comfort and what your party feels good about. The best way to learn these kinds of things are to just get out there and do it. Happy tanking. Thanks so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to leave a comment, like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you know whenever I upload a new video. I'm going to keep doing these for a little bit. These role guides will be done for each of the tanks, the healers, the physical DPS, and the casters. And then I will continue these beginner's guide videos for as long as I have things to talk about, and as long as you guys are getting info out of them, you're learning something, and you want them to keep going.